Now, you might be asking yourself right now, why can't my child focus? Let me tell you, it might be most of the time that actually his brain is overwhelmed. Today, I want to tell you this thing about sensory overload, its cycle, how it affects attention, and how it ends up affecting your child's speech. And until the nervous system, the brain is calm, your child will never be able to develop speech or attention or even learning. So what is this cycle of sensory overload? How does it start? And how does it make it very hard for your child to sustain attention even more than 2 minutes? Not because of rudeness, but because that's what is happening. The first cycle of this sensory overload, it starts by the child, his neural networks in his brain, the way they are wired, the sound you are hearing, for him, he's hearing it like 5 times. When you touch him, let's say you've gone to the salon and they are trying to shave him, the kind of feeling you feel when someone is touching your head, for him, he feels maybe like it's a very hard stone being pressed on his head. So, the sensory input of touch, the sensory input of sound, of lights, whereby he's hearing sound like 10 times, he's seeing lights like tube light. When being touched, he feels like it's sometimes causing more pain sensation. His nervous system failed to contain that. And from failing containing that, because he was born with a vulnerable nervous system, the child becomes overwhelmed. So when this child is overwhelmed by this, his brain shifts from learning language or whatever to the survival mode. Because it is dealing with something which is extreme. So it is in alertness. The sympathetic nervous system or the body's fight or flight becomes overactive. So his brain now shifts from anything which you might call normal to the survival mode. And now his brain being overwhelmed, this creates a nervous system which has now shifted from being just a calm nervous system to a stressed nervous system. So this will make it very hard for him to focus, very hard for him to run, very hard for him to even speak a word like mama, which you want him to speak. Not because of stubbornness, but because he really wants to do what you tell him you want him to do, but he really doesn't have the capability to do that. So his nervous system now shifts to the stress mode. So the third cycle which happens, now the brain was overwhelmed, his nervous system now shifted to the stress mode, and from there, the attention drops significantly. It becomes very difficult for the child to even have 2 minutes of eye contact or to do any activity of learning or communicating, because what he's dealing with inside is just too much for him. The fourth thing which happens, now the child gets even more frustrated, leading to more overload. So when this happens, until you work on how to calm down his nervous system, let's say using Kunga therapy, very good at calming down the nervous system, or getting your child for physical activities, taking away screens, giving him plenty of water, getting your child to sleep by working on his gut system, that's what will give you your results. And from there, training your child to speak will become very easier, because most of the children I've met personally, the problem is not because they don't understand. The problem is not because they can't speak, because the minute they get attention in a week or two, they start speaking over. That's when you find there was something else hindering their speech, which was a vulnerable nervous system which is having a sensory overload, which is overactive, and also an overactive nervous system, which was making it very hard for them to focus, to run, or be attentive for anything which would help him to develop that speech. So work on calming down the nervous system. Then this circle of sensory overload will stop.